Hey friends, Jen here with a book review for you. It's been a bit of a while. I am in a new setup here because I have moved after living in my other house for 10 years. I moved closer to where I grew up. So my setup in this particular room is actually not that different than my old setup. I have some bookshelves behind me, but they are set up a little bit differently. Even the wall color is actually kind of similar. I inadvertently chose a color that was pretty close to the color that I had. I think it's just a little bit lighter. And on top of all of that, the review I have for you today is also a little different because it's more contemporary fiction or like women's fiction than my usual young adult book reviews. So this is by Emily Henry, which if you follow this channel, you know that I love books by Emily Henry. A Million Junes, When the Love That Split the World. I'm totally blanking on other of her books. Like, I know that I'm missing one for some reason. Maybe I'm not missing one. Maybe that was it. But anyway, I really love her books, so you can find other reviews for her young adult books. She's kind of usually writes kind of in the like urban fantasy, magical realism, kind of even speculative fiction kind of range of things. So this I wasn't sure if I wanted to read because it's not really my jam, but given everything that's been happening in the world, I decided that maybe I did want to read something a little lighthearted. And I had read Well Met by, I want to say it's like Jennifer Suska or something like that. I don't think I reviewed it on the channel, but I have the next one in that series called Well Played, and I really enjoyed reading something a little lighthearted, so I decided to go ahead and read this. There was a big gap because, like I said, I moved. So when I moved, I didn't really read for like 2 months. So overall, I would say this probably took me a month to read. I stopped at about mid-August and I just finished it like a couple weeks ago. So this follows Gus in January, who goes by Janie, but it's Janie's story. So Janie, her father passes away and he leaves her this beach house in Michigan, along Lake Michigan. And so she goes up there because she's a writer and, you know, her dad just died, so she's feeling pretty despondent. And she ends up finding out that the guy who lives next door to her is like a longtime rival that she's had back from like college days, and his name is Augustus Everett. He goes by Gus, and he's also a writer, so they're both writers. So they kind of decide to do this swap where he usually writes darker stuff and she usually writes happy ending romantic comedies, and they're going to help each other do research to try and write in these opposite genres. So then the subplots are obviously Janie and Gus's relationship. Janie had a relationship that just ended not in a great way before she went up to Michigan, and then the death of Janie's father and a big secret that he held during his life. And like, you know, can our parents and other people ever be who we think that they are? Like, people have secrets, people have parts of their identity. For example, parents have parts of their identities that they don't necessarily share with their children. So it's a really complex book. So I guess I say like contemporary fiction and lighthearted, kind of I was gonna say lightly, but it's not really just, you know, a surface rom-com kind of book. There are funny parts. That's kind of Emily Henry's style, is she has a great sense of humor, and that often comes across in her writing. So beach read is not Emily Henry's usual. It's reading contemporary romance. I used to really like it in my early 20s, but as I got older, I didn't enjoy it as much. But I really liked this story because it's not your typical, you know, your typical like women's, like contemporary women's fiction or whatever. But it's also not super deep. I actually stumbled across something new called Storygraph, which is an alternative to Goodreads. And if you haven't been on it, you need to check it out. It has beautiful layout. And some of the features I like about it are keywords for books. And you can also import your Goodreads, so that's another reason to check it out. But it also, you can do content warnings and list triggers. So I really like that. So I think I might start doing that if I can remember in my videos when I do post. I'd like to start posting a little more regularly again because I've missed sharing book reviews with you and working on building this YouTube community. So triggers for this book would be loss of a parent. I mean, they drink, but I wouldn't say anything about like alcoholism or anything like that. So loss of a parent, dealing with grief. And another big one is actually part of the research for the book Gus is working on involves a cult. So, and I mean cult, not a cult. So it involves that and going to some burnt out ruins of this cult. So that could be triggering depending on your background or, you know, fire trauma or anything like that. So I really like that feature of Storygraph. They're not sponsoring this video. They don't even know I exist. I just stumbled upon it. Like, I can't even remember where. I think it appeared in like a rundown of a newsletter I get maybe or something. And I just thought, you know, I would check it out. And then it was super easy to import my Goodreads. And it's just more visually pleasing and less clunky than Goodreads is. Goodreads is like, I'm sick of Facebook. Why is everything constantly trying to turn into Facebook? It's super annoying. So Storygraph is something that you should check out if you are interested in not only the reviews, but maybe keywords for books. They have questions about pacing that you can answer after you review a book. So all those kinds of things I think are, you know, can really help a reader. And then based on, like, you fill out a little survey based on what you are interested in reading, and that's the kind of books that they recommend to you. So it's not just about the number of books that you read. What's your Goodreads goal? Like, nobody cares. Sorry, really, nobody cares. Like, if that's what you're basing your self-worth on, you need to do some inner child healing or something. So it's just a great alternative and, you know, great usability. It's still in the beta version, but I have really enjoyed using it. And like I said, it's just very visually appealing. I'm a big advocate for the triggers because I hate when a trigger surprises me in a book. I'm very empathetic and it really sits with me for a really long time. So I thought that was really cool that they had that feature. And I went through and searched a bunch of books that I have to see, you know, what triggers. And maybe, like, it doesn't mean I'm never going to read the book, but maybe I'm dealing with something right now, and so that particular trigger isn't going to work with me based on where I am in my life at this point. So Storygraph is amazing, and I think you should check it out. Like I said, they don't even know I exist. I just thought it was worth sharing. So it's kind of turned into a long-ish review. So if you like contemporary fiction or realistic fiction with a little bit more depth and a little bit of humor, I definitely would check this out. Oh, there are explicit sex scenes. I wasn't going to list that as a trigger, but just as an FYI. But I love Emily Henry. There's something about her writing style and the way she writes about human connection that just is so real to me in a raw kind of way. Oh, When the Sky Fell on Splendor. That was the other book. The word raw triggered me to remember that because I felt like a gutted fish after reading that book. That it came to me just when I needed it to. It was something I was going through. But if you like YA and, like, you know, the magical realism or urban fantasy, I totally suggest checking out her other books. If you don't really like the magical elements, Beach Read is pretty much straight and narrow. I think I gave it 4 stars. It's not, I mean, I really like magic in my book. It wasn't, you know, pacing or anything like that. I might have given it 5 stars. Now I can't even remember. But I pretty much like everything that she writes because she just has really great character development. So I did cry. I cried during all of Emily Henry's books. But like I said, I also laughed. So if you think this would be up your alley, even though it's no longer summer because I'm sporting my Hocus Pocus shirt and we're pretty much, it's going to be Halloween probably around the time I post this or close to it. So maybe save it for your TBR, you know, for next summer. Or if you just want a dose of, you know, something a little different in the middle of winter, then I recommend you check out Beach Read by Emily Henry. I believe all the covers look like this, but I was subscribed to Book of the Month at the time, so this was a Book of the Month. And that's all I have for you. I'm deciding what I want to read next, and I think I'm going to try A Discovery of Witches again. because it's October and I tried it a few years ago and I thought it was really slow, which I guess it is really slow, but then I saw an ad for it becoming, I think, a TV show or something, and I was kind of intrigued again. So I'm gonna give the All Souls trilogy a good old college try and try again and see if I enjoy it. So I might not have another review for you for a while unless I dip into something else while I'm reading that, because that book, that's a bigger book. So don't forget to subscribe to this channel for the periodic book review. Don't really review book boxes anymore. I don't know if I'm just going to focus on books going forward. I do know I'm going to participate in NaNoWriMo this year. I didn't publish any books this year, and I have 2 that need published. NaNoWriMo from last year, which I haven't even edited yet. And then I have to write the 3rd book in my House of Snakes trilogy, so I'll definitely be participating in NaNoWriMo. So if I'm still reading Discovery of Witches, I might jump on here and do some writing videos for you. Just maybe progress checks or, you know, ramblings or whatever. So don't forget to subscribe if you're into reading and writing. Hit the bell that's somewhere down there to be notified when I upload a video, especially because my uploads have been so sporadic. And I think that's all I have for you. So comment below, let me know what you're reading, or if you love Emily Henry or have read Beach Read, and in the meanwhile, happy reading, happy reading.